Good morning, Albert Eagles. It's May the 8th, 2020. We're finishing up the last day of warm up and homework for this week. All right, starting on this first box. Which sentence is true? So we have a whole bunch of comparisons here about greater than, less than, equal to. We kind of need to go through each one just to make sure that there are multiple answers. So on the first one, we're going to take 3/10, and they say that it is greater than 3/8. And we need to double check that. So remember, to be able to check these fractions very quickly, we can use cross multiplication. So we'll cross multiply here, and we'll cross multiply there. So I'm going to take 10 times 3, it's going to be 30, and then 8 times 3 is going to be 24. Remember, to always write the number on the top of that fraction. So for this one to be correct, this number needs to have a bigger number on top. Then 3/10 needs to have a bigger number on top than 3/8, which is not the case, so A is not right. All right, let's move on to the next one. We have 2/3 is equal to 7/10. Same thing, we're going to cross multiply. Now for this one to be true, both numbers are going to need to be the same because there's an equal in the middle. 3 times 7, the 21 goes up here. 2 times 10, the 20 goes up here. Although it's very close, those are not the same numbers, so that one is also incorrect. All right, going on this one, I guess that one was B. 3/4 is less than 3/5. Alright, so on this one, this number, 3/5, needs to have a bigger number on top in order for this sentence to be true. So let's cross multiply to find out if that's right. 4 times 3 is 12, and 5 times 3 is 15. 3/4 actually has the bigger number on top, so B is also not correct. So it has to be D, but let's just double check. 1/3 should be bigger than 3/10. So we're looking for 1/3 to have the bigger number on top. We cross multiply. 10 times 1 is 10. 3 times 3 is 9. 1/3 does have the bigger number on top, so D is correct. What is 6 1/4 minus 2 3/10? Alright, so let me go and write this one down. Find some space somewhere. 6 1/4 minus 2 3/10. Alright, remember, adding and subtracting fractions, we need common denominators, so we got a couple steps we got to do to get ourselves there. First off, we want to change these to improper fractions. We don't want to work with whole numbers, we just want to work with fractions. Let's do times and plus. 6 times 4 is 24, plus 1 is 25, keep the bottom number, 4, bring down the subtraction sign. 10 times 2 is 20, 20 plus 3 is 23 over 10. Alright, so now I have 25 over 4 minus 23 over 10. We need to create a common denominator, so we're going to try to save some time here. We ask ourselves, how many times can 4 go into 10? Or, I'm sorry, can 4 go into 10? Can we take the smaller number, turn it into the bigger one? 4, unfortunately, nothing you can multiply 4 by, that'll get it to 10. So we need to think of the smallest number they both have in common, which in this case is 20. Alright, so we start with the 4. What times 4 got me to 20? That was 5. So we need to do 25 times 5. Should be 125, but let's work it out over here. Just double check ourselves. 5 times 5 is 25, carry the 2. 5 times 2 is 10. 10 plus 2 is 12, so it is 125 over 20. And the other one, what times 10 got me to 20? That would be 2. So I need to do 23 times 2. It should be 46, but again, let's double check ourselves. 2 times 3 is 6, and 2 times 2 is 4, so 46 was right. So now I need to take the 125 and subtract the 46. We all know that the bottom number stays the same, so we'll go ahead and put that on there. And we'll take the 125, and we're going to subtract the 46. I can't take 6 away from 5, so I'll borrow from the 2. The 2 becomes a 1, the 5 gets to be 15. 15 minus 6 is 9. Can't take 4 away from 1, so we borrow from this one. It becomes a 0, and this one gets to be 11. 11 minus 4 is 7. So we end up with 79 over 20. We don't want to leave it like that, so we need to divide it. So we're going to take the 79, divide by 20, change it back to a mixed number since that's what they gave us to begin with. 20 cannot go into 7, but 20 can definitely go into 79. It can go in 3 times, which would be 60. It was so close with 4, it was just 1 away, but it seems like it's always like that. 9 minus 0 is 9, and 7 minus 6 is 1, so we end up with a remainder of 19. So the mixed number for this one should be 3 and 19 over 20, which would be C. The next one, it says, what multiplication problem does this model show? Alright, so remember, when we do these, we're going to want to count rows up vertically, and we're going to want to count rows side to side or horizontal. So on the first one, we're going to count rows going straight up. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the first one, I'll just write it over here, will be 5. And out of those 5 going up, we're having 2 shaded. So I'm looking for any of these that have 2/5. A has 2/5. C has 2/5. But B and D do not, so we'll go ahead and get rid of those right off the bat. Alright, so now I'm going to count rows horizontally, and that is, we got 1, 2, 3. So the bottom number is going to be 3. And out of those 3, I have 1 shaded. So I should be multiplying 2/5 times 1/3, which is C. Just double check to make sure they got the right answer. We multiply the tops, and we multiply the bottoms. 2 times 1 is 2. 5 times 3 is 15. So 2 out of 15, which would be these two right here, are overlapped both vertically and horizontally. Alright, the next one. Hold this under so we see a little bit better. Okay. So we have 4/5 divided by 1/10. No mixed numbers here, so no need to times and plus. But I do see division. Remember, we don't want to divide, we want to multiply, because that's a much easier skill to do. So to do that, we create an inverse by using KFC. Keep, flip, change. We're going to keep the first fraction, 4 over 5. We're going to flip the second fraction, 1 over 10 to 10 over 1. And we're going to change the division to a times. Now we just multiply the two tops and we multiply the two bottoms. 4 times 10 is going to be 40. And 5 times 1 is going to be 5. So we end up with 40 over 5. Can't leave it like that, so we need to divide. The good news is here, although 5 can't go into 4, 5 can go into 40 perfectly 8 times, which is 40, and 40 minus 40 is 0. So no leftover, no remainder. So we're just looking for 8 holes, which is C. Remember, A is not the same thing as 8 holes. Okay, so this next one. I'm going to make sure that I try to explain this the best I can. A lot of room here to do it as well. It says Laura and Robs need to find an equivalent, or a decimal equivalent to 39 over 50. So let me write that down first. 39 over 50. We're looking for a decimal equivalent. Laura said you can write the equivalent fraction with 100 as the denominator and convert it to a decimal. Rob said you can divide the numerator by the denominator. Who is correct? And you can see that we have options. Only he's correct, only she's correct, neither are correct, or they're both correct. Okay, so let's start with what she said. She said, if you just write this fraction with an equivalent fraction with 100 being at the denominator, you can write that very easily as a decimal. So what she's saying is take this 50 and turn it into a fraction with 100 at the bottom, because when you're writing decimals, there's the tenths place, the hundredths place, the thousandths place, but there's no 50th place. But there is a hundredths place. So if we could find what it is over 100, we could very easily write that as a decimal. Now the good news is 50 can turn into 100. You can multiply by 2. Now just like we always do, if you multiply the bottom by 2, you need to multiply the top by 2, which is 39. So we're going to take the 39, multiply by 2. 2 times 9 is 18, carry the 1. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is going to be 7. So end up with 78 over 100. And that is also read as 78 hundredths, or 0.78. Okay, so she is most definitely right. You can do that for sure. We just need to find out if he's also correct. So what he said was you can take the 39 over 50, and since it basically represents a division problem, which is what we've talked about before, that you can divide the top number by the bottom number. So although your first intention is to put the 50 on the inside because it's a bigger number, remember the top number is what we always put on the inside when we change those fractions back to mixed numbers. The top number is always going to go on the inside, so we put 39 on the inside and 50 on the outside. Okay, so watch this. Now this is not something typically you would have had to do in 5th grade, but it's still something that I think you'll be able to understand. Alright, so if I start dividing, I say 50 can't go into 3, 50 can't go into 39. Okay, so right now I would just have a straight up remainder of 39. Okay, sorry, it's gonna seem like there's a break. The trash truck was coming down the street and I heard it, and if you want to have a bad day, forget to put the trash out and then tell either your mom or your wife that you forgot to put the trash out, and then it is a bad day. So I had to run that out really quick. Okay, so what I was saying you can't go 50 into 39 at all. This is larger than what you're dividing. So you would end up with a remainder of 39. But when we do decimals, remember we always talk about we don't want remainders. So to be able to prevent that, we need to keep going. So 39 technically has an invisible decimal. It goes right there. Always has it right behind it. Now if we put a 0 here, we could go into this number, 390. But that didn't change the value because there's a decimal there. So 50 can go into 390. Think about 5 going into 39 because it has extra zeros on it. 5 can go into 39. It can go 7 times. So 5 times 7 is 35. Add that 0 back on. And again, if that confuses you, just do 50 times 7 over here. 7 times 0 is 0. 7 times 5 is 35. Just trying to think mental math here. That's 350. 0 minus 0 is 0. 9 minus 5 is 4, and 3 minus 3 is 0. So now I have 40. But again, that's still a remainder. We don't want a remainder. So we're going to add another 0, which again is not something you would have to do in 5th grade, drop multiple zeros, but in this case, we have to do it. 50 can go into 400 perfectly 8 times. Just to prove it, we'll do it right over here. 8 times 0 is 0. 8 times 5 is 40. So we have 400. So if I put an 8 up there, I have 400. No more remainder, so I can stop. I go up, bring my decimal straight up, and I have 0.78. So 0.78. Although this one has 2 zeros in front of it, it is the exact same number. So it turns out that they are both correct. Okay, and the last one. Which decimal is equivalent to 11 over 20? So just like they just did, they showed you 2 different ways that you could do this. We could either divide the top number by 20 and go with all of those decimals and doing all that extra stuff. That's one way to do it. Or we could just turn the 20 into 100, which that would be my way of doing it. It's a little bit quicker. So if I was going to take 11 over 20 and change it to a 100, I'd have to ask myself, what times 20 gets me to 100? Think of money. How many $20 bills do you need to get to 100? That would be 5. So if I multiply the bottom by 5, I also multiply the top by 5, and 11 times 5 is 55. So I'm looking for 55 hundredths, or 0.55, which would be D. Alright, so that wraps up the homework. We'll go ahead and get started on the warm-up now. Okay, starting with number 1. We have 1/9 divided by 4. Remember, we're not trying to divide fractions with whole numbers, so we're going to put a 1 under this to make it still equal 4 wholes, but look like a fraction. Alright, remember, both of these are division, so we're going to utilize KFC, keep, flip, change. So, I keep the first fraction, which is 1/9. I flip the second fraction from 4 over 1 to 1 over 4. And I make the last fraction my multiplication. So 1 times 1 is 1. 9 times 4 is 36. 1 over 36 is not 36 wholes, it's still 1 over 36. Down here, same thing, we're going to put a 1 under the 4 to represent it as a fraction. I'm going to keep the first one, 4 over 1. I'm going to flip the second one, 1 over 9 to 9 over 1. And now I'm going to multiply. 4 times 9 is 36, and 1 times 1 is 1. 36 over 1 is equal to 36 wholes. Marcos has 3.5 yards of yarn. Sebastian gives him another 2 3/8 yards of yarn. How much yarn does he have now? So if he had 3.5 and someone gave him 2 3/8, and they're wanting to know how much he has now, if he gained it, he added to what he already had. So we need to add those two. We do it on a separate sheet of paper here, so I have a little more room. So I'm going to take 3 1/2, and I'm going to add 2 3/8. Remember, we're adding, so we need bottom common denominators, but we also just want to work in fractions. So let's change these to mixed numbers. So we utilize times and plus. 2 times 3 is 6, and 6 plus 1 is 7 over 2. Bring down the plus, and we'll do this one. 8 times 2 is 16. 16 plus 3 is 19 over 8. To save a little time, we'll see if the 2 can change to an 8, and it most certainly can. You can multiply 2 by something to get it to 8, so we'll keep the 19 over 8, and we'll change that to an 8. Alright, now I need to ask myself, what times 2 got me to 8, which would be 4. So I have to do 7 times 4. 7 times 4 is 28. Alright, so we don't add the bottom number, it's going to stay in 8, but I do need to add that 28 plus 19, so let me do that right up here. 28 plus 19. 9 plus 8 is 17, carry the 1. 1 plus 2 plus 1 is 4, so we end up with 47 over 8. Alright, can't leave it like that, and of course it would have almost been another whole number of perfect, but it's not. We're going to divide 47 by 8. 8 cannot go into 4, but 8 can definitely go into 47. 6 times would have been 48 and would have been perfect, so we're not quite there, but we can go 5 times, which would be 40. 7 minus 0 is 7, so we end up with a remainder of 7. So this one right here as a mixed number is going to be 5 7/8 yards of yarn. Alright, moving on to this evaluating the expression. We need to make sure we use order of operations here, so we're going to start with the very beginning. Remember, it's PEMDAS, P-E-M-D-A-S. So we're going to start with parentheses, exponent, multiply and divide. These two go together, and then add, subtract, those go together. So if they're both there, we'll work it left to right. Alright, first off, parentheses. Definitely have parentheses, which is 1 plus 1, so I'll go and write down 2. Let me cross off everything I've done so far so I can remember, and I'll bring down what I haven't used, which would be plus 5, divide by 4, times 5. Alright, so now I look for exponents, don't have any of those, keep moving. Do I have any multiply or divide? I do. So I need to work these left to right. So start at the left and work to the right. That means I do the multiplication first. 5 times 4 is going to be 20. So let me cross that off, I've used it. Write down divide by 2, and then plus 5. Run out of room here, so I'm going to kind of move over here. Alright, so now I only have division to add left. Division definitely comes before add, so I need to do that first. 20 divided by 2 is going to be 10. I've used that now. The only thing I need to bring down is the plus 5. So now I have 10 plus 5, and that's going to be 15. Alright, this next one, here we go. We are multiplying mixed numbers, so the first thing we're going to do, just like they're asking us to do, is change them to improper fractions. So we're going to use times and plus, like we always do. First one's going to be big. 7 times 5 is 35. 35 plus 5 is going to be 40 over 7. This one's a lot smaller. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 plus 1 is 3 over 2. Alright, if I'm multiplying these, first off, 7 times 2 is going to be 14, because remember, multiply denominators, multiply numerators. And this one I'm going to use mental math. 3 times 4 is 12. Add on the 0, so I have 120 over 14. Don't want to leave it like that, so let's divide. 120 divided by 14. 14 cannot go into 1. 14 cannot go into 12. How many times do we think 14 can go into 120? I'm going to go with, let's go with 8. I think 8's going to be it. 8 times 4 is 32, carry the 3. 8 times 1 is 8, plus 3 is 11. 112, yeah, that's close as we're getting. So 8 goes up at the top, 112 goes at the bottom. Sorry, can't even see any of what I'm doing. 2 minus 0 is, I can't do 2 minus 0, so I borrow from the 2. It becomes a 1. The 0 gets to be a 10. 10 minus 2 is 8. And then 1 minus 1 is 0. 1 minus 1 is 0. So I just have a remainder of 8. Remember, it's okay with remainders because we're doing fractions here. So if I'm changing that to a mixed number, it needs to be 8 and 8 over 14. 8 and 8 14ths. Alright, and the last one. This one hopefully will be a little bit smaller. Same thing, we're going to start off with times and plus, change those to improper fractions. 4 times 2 is 8, 8 plus 1 is 9 over 4. And the other one, we're going to do 2 times 4 is 8, 8 plus 2 is 10 over 4. Alright, here we go. Multiply top numbers. 9 times 10 is 90, and 4 times 4 is 16. Okay, so if I'm going to take this 16 over, or 90 over 16, I'm going to have to divide that. So 90 divided by 16. 16 cannot go into 9. I'm going to say 16 can go into 90. Let's go 5 times 16 times 5. 5 times 6 is 30, carry the 3. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 3 is 8, 80. Yeah, that's as close. So 5 goes here, 80 goes up top. 0 minus 0 is 0, 9 minus 8 is 1, so we end up with a remainder of 10. So this, as a mixed number, is going to be 5 and 10/16. And the last one, our little number powers of 10 problem. Alright, so first off, we're dividing by 10. So you're dividing by 10, that means we're going to move our decimal to the left because you're dividing by a whole number. So 76.5 divided by 10 has 1 0. I move it 1 spot to the left. That's 7.65. The next one, 76.5 divided by 100. That has 2 zeros, so I'm bumping that 2 spots to the left. 0.765. And the last one, 76.5 divided by 1,000. That has 3 zeros. I bump that decimal 1, 2, 3 spots to the left. Leaves a blank. I fill all blanks in with a 0 always. So we have 0.0765. Alright, on these other ones, we have 76.5 divided by 0.1. Dividing by a decimal is not the same thing as dividing by 10 because it's less. You're basically doing the opposite here. You're multiplying by 10. So we move all decimals to the right. First one, 76.5 divided by 0.1. Because it has one number behind the decimal, we move it 1 spot to the right. So that would be 765. Point if you want to put it there. 76.5 divided by 0.01 has 2 numbers behind the decimal, so I bump it 1, 2 spots. That leaves a blank. Sorry, it's crowded there. That would be 7,650. If you want to put a decimal, you can. Again, don't have to. And the last one, I'm going to rewrite this one because of the room. 76.5 divided by 0.01, that's 3 numbers behind the decimal, so I'm bumping it 1, 2, 3 spots to the right. Fill in both those blanks with zeros, so that would be 76,500. You can put a decimal right there at the end. Alright, so today is going to be the last day I have the window open for if you are struggling with something, or if there's something that you're thinking, you know what, I would like some more practice on that, for you to send me a message on the Remind app so that way I can kind of pull those worksheets this weekend. If I do not hear anything from anybody, because I haven't heard anything from anybody all week, I will just kind of pick out what I think is some stuff that you could use some review on, and I'll kind of go from there. But over the next, because it looks like, if I'm looking at the calendar right, sorry, I'm kind of bringing it up as I talk, starting this next week, we'll have 1, 2, 3 more weeks of videos, and then that 3rd week would be our last day of school if we were back at school. So I'm gonna kind of just take it from there. But anytime in those 3 weeks, if there's something that you're thinking, man, I just wish we could do a little more practice on that, please don't hesitate. Let me know, and I can start pulling some resources for that. All right. Otherwise, you guys have a great weekend. Thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you on Monday.